Welcome to the Home Team Podcast, where we believe that no matter what jersey you're wearing, if you believe in character, if you believe in honor, and if you believe in integrity for your young athletes, then you are all a part of this home team here in Sacramento. You guys can follow us on all social media at Home Team Sac, and then obviously on all the different streaming platforms and YouTube. So make sure you guys follow us there. Kevin Bracey is not with us tonight, but we do have a very special guest. KCRA 3 sports anchor and reporter, Michelle Dapper. What's going on?
What's up, Josh? Good to see you again.
It's good to see you again as well. We almost didn't get this podcast started because we were talking a lot of Dodgers Giants because when we're recording this is the day before Game 5 of the NLDS. And I'm stressed. I think Michelle's a little stressed, but she was kind enough to still do this podcast as a Dodgers fan, which I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Like you said, home team, right? Doesn't matter what jersey you're wearing. It's respect for the game.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we had you on. So for anybody who doesn't know who you are in this community, they're not paying attention. If that's the case, they maybe they don't have social media. We'll say that, but give us a little bit of your background, your sports background, how you started as an athlete, and then how did you get into sports journalism and reporting?
So, Chris, I was born in Southern California. That's why I'm a Dodgers fan. We moved up to the Bay Area when I was fairly young. Grew up in the Bay. Went to high school there, Monroe Catholic in Hayward. And from there went to junior college and then went to San Francisco State, where I found out, after testing the waters, I figured out that I wanted to do broadcasting. And at that time, women in sports was very, very new, I would say. Your goats are still around, but it was like Linda Cohn and Bonnie Bernstein and Tafoya was still there, but it was still in its infancy stages. And I think the Best Damn Sports Show was still going on with Leanne Tweeden and all those ladies that kind of paved the way for the beginners, of course. And so I kind of realized that I love sports. I could talk sports all day long, and I played sports. So I kind of figured out that was going to be my career path. High school, I played soccer, basketball, martial arts, soccer, softball, basketball, martial arts. Yeah. And I did cheerlead for 1 year, more of a dare, but I did cheerlead for a year. And yeah, so, I've been an athlete my entire life. And once I went to San Francisco State, amazing program for broadcasting. So if anyone wants to get into broadcasting in general, news or sports, I'd highly recommend San Francisco State. But graduated there and took my first job in Abilene, Texas, which was basically covering Friday Night Lights.
Wow.
In fact, the same schools. You got 30,000 on the hand in a stadium on a Friday night. The atmosphere is electric. What you see is what you get. It's like TV. And so that was fun. I was there for 3 years, covering high school football and, D2. Abilene Christian was still D2 at the time. And then a couple D3 schools. And usually, in the broadcasting world, you want to move up and advance. And so I took my second TV job in Eugene, Oregon, covering Beavers and Ducks. So that was amazing. Rose Bowls, Civil War, that's not called a Civil War anymore.
Yeah.
Basically college football at its highest peak and basketball as well. And there's a big rivalry there. So that was fun. And after Eugene, Spokane, Washington. So I went to Spokane, got to cover Gonzaga for 6 years. So traveling all over the country during the NCAA tournament. And of course, we can't forget, Eastern Washington, Washington State, Idaho as well. The Vandals are there. So it's a great sports town. Lots to do, very, very busy. And I was in Spokane for 6 years. And then my former news director here at KCRA called one day and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about coming to Sacramento?" And I said, "Hey, that's 90 miles from my parents' house. Absolutely, let's do this." So obviously the interview process happened, and I've been here for 7.5 years now. So it's gone by in a blink of an eye, but I'm happy to call Sacramento home.
That's awesome. First of all, you broke that down. You're definitely a pro because you broke your whole history down in a very concise way. That's very impressive. That's so cool though. You have so much experience in the sports world at the various levels. And I'm sure you mentioned this last time we did a podcast together, but I don't think I remember that you started off in Texas doing the whole Friday.
Yeah, that was a big jump. But it's funny. I look back and it was probably the best move I did. One, I was completely out of my comfort zone. Didn't know a soul. you basically put your big girl pants on
Sure.
and move away from your parents, your family, everything, in a completely different culture, raised in the Bay. And then now you're going to Texas, and we all know what Texas is about, Bay
Hmm.
family football.
Yeah.
And I mean, but it was amazing because I got to see a different part of the country. I got to see, it opened my eyes to the world that outside of a bubble.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I mean, heck, and their facilities over there, holy moly.
Well, I was gonna say because I know like just recently, maybe at this point, maybe a week or two ago, we had it was last week, I think, De La Salle Folsom, right? And that's a
Yep,
big game, and I don't know
I
because
was at
we're
that game. Yeah.
oh perfect. So I know we're still kind of the weird capacity thing and them not letting people in, but I
Mhm.
think 3 or 4 years ago, I went to the De La Salle football game at Folsom, and I, being a moron, thought, hey, me and my brother can go get tickets that night, and they laughed at us. They're like, what were you thinking? And so we had to go up to the top of the hill on the visitors side to watch the game.
Yep.
But that being said, for this area, that's like a massive game. Like the number of
Massive.
people that show up, and then just the intensity of that game. But
The
compared to what you
quality
saw
of
in
football
the
too.
quality of football, the
Quality
coaching,
is top
it's
notch.
incredible. But
Yeah.
compared to like a Friday night in Texas, how does that compare?
That's comparable. Definitely like at the 5A, that's how they kind of break it down, 5A level. I mean, when you got your Trinities and
Mm,
your Texas Allen, your Allens and I mean, Katy, I mean, all these, I mean, Abilene High was up there, and then you got Midland and the Mojo and Odessa Permian, like those schools really exist. And those are the schools that are your big schools, and
yeah,
that's where the talent's at.
yeah,
Texas does have smaller ranks, of course,
sure.
and it is like your typical Friday night of just a few hundred fans in the stands. But the higher the level that it gets, one, the talent, it's mind blowing. The facilities are like college facilities, and the crowds are. It's everything shuts down. That is what they're at. They are at that football game on that Friday night, and the kids are treated like celebrities. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I mean, I saw a lot of kids that quite interesting. When you're treated like you're on a pedestal your entire life, and then sometimes I saw either the success story of them going to the next level and succeeding, or
Mm,
I saw them fail as well, which was
uh,
very interesting because when you're raised and you're treated like a celebrity your entire life and you can do no wrong, and then when you go out to the real world and you're on your own and you got to keep that scholarship, sometimes it doesn't always work out. And that was always fascinating to me, that sometimes you have this 5-star recruit and he's going to Nebraska or he's at Oklahoma State thinking, okay, you're gonna, hey, you're the man.
yeah.
And then there's some off the field issues or whatnot, and it's like, oh, okay, like now what do you how are you gonna like have that character to get out of that, or what happened, or what was the
Mm.
problem? It's just very interesting. It's very interesting because I mean these kids are put on pedestals there.
Yeah, and I've heard someone say that before, where they mentioned you look at some of these professional athletes, and I could name a bunch of them. I'm not going to on this podcast, but we could. I mean, a bunch of them just popped in my head of guys, both men and women, that have had issues off the field at the professional level. And someone was saying, if you look back, it probably started at the youth level, at the high school level,
Absolutely,
because and it might be a small thing too. It's like, hey,
too.
hey, we like we'll let you pass this class. You're getting an F in this class, but I know coach needs you to be in the game on Friday night, so we'll figure out. And so there's these little things that start happening that help them almost in their mind say, okay, me as an athlete is above everything else, and as long
Right.
as I can compete, then I'm good. And it's almost like it creates this mindset of I'm untouchable, I'm invincible, and I can do. And then obviously, you get a DUI, you're not gonna escape from that a lot of times. You're gonna be,
Right. I mean, I had one athlete that covered in high school, was an amazing talent, went off to a D1 college, ended up stealing his roommate, which is also a teammate, his credit card, and committed fraud. And you're going to get caught,
sure,
and he lost everything. I mean, he lost the scholarship, and then what do? You're back at your small town that you're trying to get out of,
yeah,
and now you're back to square one, where everyone knows what you did too. So you're also feeling not only remorseful on what you did there, but you're having to face everyone in the eye and say,
right.
what I did. So much hope, so much promise, and then man, I can't imagine what that does to someone. So,
Yeah, and it's such a tough thing. And obviously,
no,
we've
but of course that's an extreme. That's an extreme scenario. There are kids, of
sure.
course, that succeed. Absolutely. But it's interesting when you come from these small towns to see, how they do adapt at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we've tried to articulate to coaches that we talk to. I think sometimes you get this idea of a character combine, a home team, these different positive coaching alliance, whatever organization you want to pick out. It seems to be this idea of everybody play nice, everybody, water down the competition. It's like, no,
Right.
that's not the case at all. We want the competition to be really high, but we want you to do it the right way. Sometimes it feels like if you have coaches that have a player that has some issues, or if they have some problems on the team, we understand that, like, people, you're dealing with human beings. And so
Yeah.
you're not going to have a perfect track record. If you do, like, please let me know. You can take over this podcast because
That's
you know
like
what you're
having a
talking about.
job with everyone who doesn't have a little spiff every once and so often. You know what I mean? Like it's a human nature.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and so I just want to make that very clear to coaches that listen to this. Like, we don't expect you guys to have the perfect team. There's going to be
No,
issues, but like,
no
I
way.
guess how do you handle that when those things do happen? Like, how do you handle it? How do you
I would
convey
be,
that
I
message
would
to
be
the rest of your team?
transparent. I would be transparent about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the best way to be is, here's what happened. And honestly, this is what happened. This is not the right choice. Sorry, these are the consequences. If
Right.
any of y'all want to do the same thing, there's the door. This is not the way this is not our culture here, like you got to set the boundaries for the culture, I think.
I'm glad you said that, because someone not too long ago, maybe like just a few days ago, was mentioning that sometimes with organizations like, I'm not going to put us in the same category, but like,
Yeah.
different organizations that promote positive coaching, they don't take into consideration the culture in which they're coaching in. You've been to a ton of places. The culture in
Yep.
Texas is very different than here. The
Yep.
culture here is very different than when you were up in Oregon.
Yep.
So when you have so when you look at coaches and their leadership and all of that, and all the coaches that you've interacted with and you interact with, on a
Mhm.
daily basis, what would you say is like the most important quality those coaches have, or like the great coaches? What are some things that they have in common that make them so effective, regardless of whatever culture they may be coaching in?
I think some of the great coaches that I know, they listen and they know their athletes, they know their story, they know what they come from. Um, Not every athlete comes as an entitled athlete. There's coaches that I love when they say, I'm here to create better men, or women, you know what I
Sure,
mean?
sure.
When I just love that line because it's just that's your job. You're not here. Yeah, okay. Football, whatever sport you're playing, there's a shelf life on that.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like for me, when I look back at my coaches and whatnot throughout my career, there's so many lessons that I learned through sports without even knowing that I was learning them. And that's the thing that I think is so important with sports is like you're learning about life and the way life, the things that it throws at you without the adversity that if you don't know how to handle that, then you're going to fail. But I think with sports, it helps you handle that. It helps you create that, have that maybe that little chip on your shoulder, that edge, that tough skin to overcome the hump that you're gonna face.
yeah. Well, it's cool. I completely agree 100% with everything you just said. And the awesome thing is about that is you get to play a sport while doing it. You get to have fun. You don't have to
Yes,
sit in not I'm all for counseling, but you don't have to sit in a counseling office to learn all this stuff about yourself. Like, you can become mentally tough and
right.
and
You're not
build up
sitting in a
your
chair taking notes and just sitting there, you know what I mean, writing down an outline. It's like, no, you're learning something without even knowing you're learning something.
right, which is the best way to do it. So that's why it's so important that, like, we just have so much respect for the coaches and all the coaches in this area who take that job seriously, because like you said, and the thing is, like, I feel like sometimes people make it seem like you have to pick and choose. Like, okay, do we want to make really good people, or do we want to compete and do whatever it takes? Like, I don't think you have to
I
do
think there's a way
that.
to do both. I do think
Yeah,
there's a way to do both. I mean, usually, I mean, for me, okay, I knew I wasn't D1 talent. I wasn't the D1 athlete. And I think the athlete inside knows that.
sure. Yeah,
You know if you got it or if you don't.
right.
Um, so at that point, what are you doing it for? For me, I did it for fun, for to be around my friends. And a couple of my friends were that D1 athlete. And for me, just to share the same field with them was amazing at that time. So that's what I took it as is one, I wanted to hang out with my friends. It was fun. It kept you active and exercise.
Yeah.
And you had to keep your grades up. So at the same time, so it's like extra motivation to keep your grades up so you can play. I just think there's all these other incentives, but for a program that is, so say for example, like a Folsom, when you have those D1 athletes everywhere you look on the field, I think there is a way to, sometimes those athletes are the ones that are going to need to be humbled and grounded.
Yeah.
And you need to teach them how to be a good man, because sometimes, when you're told you're great your whole life, well, sometimes there's going to be another athlete out there that's better than you, and you're going to get humbled real quick. And it's the coach's job to say, hey, here's how we can improve, or, hey, this is what we got to do next time, because that athlete might take that loss a little hard, more so than someone because they're not used to losing.
Right,
so
right.
They're going to need that kind of like that backbone to help them get through that time, I would think.
Oh yeah, that's just again, we keep saying it, but you and I both love sports, and that's the amazing thing about it. No matter what the outcome of the game is, there's always something to take away. And I love what you said too, going back a little bit about how these coaches that you've seen over the years, they're great listeners. Because a couple of weeks ago we had Mary Jo Truesdell, who's a legend.
Yeah, legend.
And she said this when we did the combine, and said it a couple weeks ago. She's like, you have to be a listener, not just your assistant coaches and the people around you, but your players too, because everybody's input can help you learn and keep you in this game, keep you successful in this game, and then also help your program. So everybody, if you guys are listening, hear what everybody's saying. Listen as coaches, listen to what everybody's saying, because there's always something to learn.
How many times as a parent, like, my friends who all have kids, it's like, yeah, you're the parent, you're teaching them something, but how many times a day do they teach you something? And I just think that's the same thing with when you're coaching an athlete as well. Like, you just take a step back sometimes, listen, and because you could learn something too.
Absolutely. My daughters are 2.5 and 5 months. They're so much smarter than me already.
Right?
But, yeah. No problem. No, not even close. Way smarter than me. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can from them.
Amen.
So let me ask you this, because obviously, like we were joking, we were talking a lot about baseball before the playoffs and everything before we started. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's just the year it is, but Elk Grove has so many guys in the majors right now, whether it be Dom Nunez, Dylan Carlson, Rowdy Tellez, Nick Madrigal. I'm blanking.
Did we say
Logan Webb?
Yep, Logan
Dylan
Webb.
Carlson. I'm sure there's other guys that I'm missing, but you have so many people from Sacramento. I know on the broadcast, Sam Long, and I know on the broadcast they've mentioned this a couple of times. Like, Sacramento has become like a pipeline for these ball players. So obviously, one of the things I love when you post about, you interviewing an athlete or doing some piece on them, like I've seen you say this a couple of times over the years since we've known each other. You're like, oh, I'm so proud of you, so-and-so. Oh, I'm so proud of you, so-and-so. And I love that you say that, because when you say that, I genuinely believe you, that you are proud of that athlete, because they're here from Sacramento. So what is it like for you seeing these athletes succeed at this high level? And then, like, how do you think that represents here in Sacramento, like our home team? How do you feel like that represents this home team?
I mean, they're playing at the highest level. That's what it's all about, right? I mean, the work and the grind that it took to get there, that's what I think I'm most proud of, because in a lot of ways, like, it's funny because pro sports and then my career is kind of very, very similar, as well as a coaching. Like, it's funny because I've talked to a lot of coaches and our jobs are very similar. It's like you have to grind your way to the top. You have to move all around the country. You're probably never in the same place for more than a couple of years. It's very unstable. You don't know, the competition is so high. I mean, like, for my job, I had 10,000 applicants for my one position that I had to be out. That's mind blowing. So in a lot of ways, I just have that respect for them, because think about the competition that, okay, let's say tomorrow, game 5, NLDS, Logan Webb's pitching for the Giants. He's been their ace this year. Like, he is the guy.
Right.
And he's 24 years old. Like,
crazy.
It's just so crazy to me, because I mean, think about your baseball, like a baseball career of like the minors and the ups and the downs. And then we've seen, with athletes like Drew Robinson for the Giants that, came with the Giants organization. It's how mentally taxing it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, like, it's like Logan, he has such a great support system around him. And, from the coaches, from his family, the community. mean, they just had Logan Webb Day the other day at Rockland the Rockland Elementary School, where he went to elementary school.
That's
Just,
awesome.
I mean, it's just things like that, and that's what I think about. It's so special about Sacramento is that's exactly what this town, this city does. It's so supportive. It's Sacramento proud, and that's like, and I love how it goes out to the regions outside of just Sacramento. It's your Placer County. It's like down in the valley. It's like that is, I mean, Elk Grove, like you said, it's contagious, and I think everyone just roots for each other.
I completely agree. And that was actually one of my questions for you was like, what makes this home team of Sacramento and the surrounding areas so special? And I think you're absolutely right. I think there is this sense of, like you said, Logan Webb from Rockland,
Yeah.
Sacramento claims him. It's like, hey, you know what?
Absolutely.
He's still part of here. Elk Grove, right? Like
Yep.
we claim all of those guys.
He hit 2 home runs in that last series with.
Yeah, he had a big game.
Big game. I mean, man.
Yeah.
I mean, big player too.
Very big guy.
Like, how can you not root for him? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just see these athletes, and I just, I respect what they've done, and you know what? They all come back too. That's what the best part is
right.
All those Elk Grove guys down there, like, they'll come back and they'll do clinics. I mean, I don't think I know an athlete that doesn't come back. I mean, look at Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker even comes back and does stuff back at home, and he's a legend. And I just think that no one forgets where they came from, and I think that's pretty special.
Oh yeah, I mean, like Jerry Manuel, all the stuff he's doing. I think even like Derek Lee, a lot of these guys.
Derek Lee, yep.
Yeah, and there's other sports too. Matt Barnes.
Yeah, they all do. It's pretty inspirational.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's
Greg Vaughn.
Oh yeah, Greg Vaughn. Yeah,
this goes on and on. I mean, a lot of them are doing different ventures and different things. Like Greg's doing some wine stuff now, and so is Dusty. But I mean, I don't know. They all seem to come back home.
When Greg was doing all of that last year during the pandemic, he was doing like a blood drive thing, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the
that was huge.
Yeah, the injection thing, not the injection, but the IV energy stuff.
Yeah. So it's so cool. Eric Armstead, like,
oh, absolutely.
And
Gus for the man of the year on the team. Yeah.
Yeah, we could do this forever, but like it's that's why I wanted to ask you that question.
Thompson too. I mean,
Shaq. See,
it's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's so cool though, because it proves that this place is a special place because, and absolutely. Again, my dad grew up in Woodland, and he went to Woodland High School. Pedroia, and then he made a couple comments about Woodland, and like I don't see guys making those comments here. If they do, they keep it to themselves because they learned from the Pedroia situation. But like I remember even my dad, who's a very stoic guy, heard that. It's like, dang, do you have to say about Woodland? Like, come on, man. Like, we're all super proud of you, and for you to like spit in our face like that. It's really
funny because since that it's been hard for us to claim him as well. Like, it's like, okay,
100%.
When he had his retirement, I covered the thing with the Red Sox, and the feed came down on the national feed, and I was like, well, Dustin Pedroia is a local guy. Does he love it now? Well, Woodland's Dustin Pedroia. So there's a little bit of like almost like the authenticity of it goes away when they do bash. It's like, I don't know, like, you can't forget where you came from. I mean, even Tom Brady, who's been on the East Coast for how long now? I mean, he still represents the Bay, and he's in Sarah High School, and he's so quick to Zoom with his coach and the players in that program still. I mean, it's Tom Brady, but you're not too big to Zoom with the Sarah head coach and the players. I mean, I don't know. Just things like that. You gotta remember where you came from.
Absolutely. And speaking of Tom Brady, I need whatever voodoo magic he has. I don't think anybody has it, but
we all do. Holy cow.
Even like not just his skill, but like his physical appearance. Like, I want to age like that backwards. It's wild.
It's wild.
Yeah. But so, I like, that's just, I love hearing all that stuff. And like I said, because you have such a close connection to all these athletes, and you've been doing this for such a long time. Like I said, that's why I felt like it was so crucial to have you. I mean, this is gonna be episode 4. I think we just had, like I said, Mary Jo Truesdell. We had Coach Chris Horner on last week. All these people who are doing great things.
All great people.
Great people. Coach Horner is a wild man. I went to CASA. That's where I graduated from. Never had Coach Horner. Didn't play football.
Best smile though, right? He has an amazing smile.
Oh yeah, incredible smile. If you don't walk away,
is so good. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you don't walk away feeling good about yourself after a conversation with Coach Horner, I don't, you weren't listening, you weren't paying attention, because he's just the best. But um,
Absolutely.
again, like, it's just so many great coaches, so many great athletes, so many great people in this area. Um, I had a question for you. What was it? I just lost my train of thought completely. Oh, no, I just wanted to say this on behalf of all of these coaches that we know and the athletes. I'm sure you heard, I've seen it. I've seen it on Twitter. I saw it, from different people, but like the work you did last year with Let Them Play California, the coverage you had of that was awesome, because I think we all, at least the majority of us, knew like how important it was to get the athletes on the field to play. And I felt like once people started seeing your voice, once they started seeing your coverage, it did feel like it was a momentum booster. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, that's not to take anything away from the organization, Let Them Play California. But like, when you have someone like you who has a great voice in this community, like, it was just awesome to see. And I know a ton of those coaches and athletes really appreciated that. So, like, I don't
I
know how that
was,
works for you guys if
it's
you're just
funny because
assigned, but
I was being the voice for, I guess, the coaches and the players, because I would talk to so many coaches and my heart was just breaking because I don't know. I mean, every time I talked to a coach throughout that year, by the way, most challenging year of my entire career, bar none, with nothing to cover, trying to make things up and do
sure,
stuff. So,
sure.
you're reaching out to coaches and saying, hey, how are you holding up? How are your kids? And it's so heartbreaking what I was hearing with how they were talking these kids off the ledge. Like,
Hmm.
one coach told me that 12 kids, he had like 12 kids on his team were really suffering. And that's not right. Like, I don't know, like for me, like that's just, there's another issue there that while yes, it's important to stay at home and while we ride through the pandemic, but at the same time, these kids they were suffering. And for
Yeah.
me, I just, stepping up with that movement, it wasn't a political thing by any means.
Right. Right.
And I hate that got lumped in there. And but that's everything in this world, right? You got to
Sure.
pick a side and choose a side. But
Sure.
no, the reason why I did that when and tried to be a voice with that movement was, you know, the kids at the end of the day, what's this all for? It's for the future, right?
Hmm.
And if they're suffering and they're struggling, that's not a good thing. And I just felt like, if someone needed to go against the grain, I guess you could say, and step up and stand up and be a voice and get it out there and cover the event at the Capitol or the one in San Juan over at Sunrise Mall. I mean,
Hmm.
there were so many other. Rockland High had one. I mean, there were so many events where it was let them play, and I don't know. And then I talked with coaches all over the state, and it wasn't just even Sacramento. It was, I got relationships with the Sarah coach,
Hmm.
the San Diego coaches, and that was the thing. It was the trend all throughout the state. It was these kids are suffering, and then it was like some couldn't get off the couch. So they were saying, "Oh, so and so has been sitting on the couch eating Cheetos," and it's like, my goodness, not only are we one mentally struggling, but two, now we're physically struggling. And,
Right.
obesity is already a problem in this country.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know, there was just so many layers to it that I just said, it was heartbreaking to me to hear these coaches who usually these coaches are big, strong men, tough and, usually have like an edge about them. And when they're like almost practically in tears because their kids are struggling, that kind of just hit home for me. And I was just kind of like, whoa, this isn't good, you know?
Right. Well, and yeah, no, and I think, I was talking to Deb about this a while ago, but you think about the mental and physical strain that like an injury takes on an athlete, right? So you have an injured athlete and there's all this psychological mental stuff that happens because they want to play so badly, but they physically can't.
Yep.
And I felt like this was almost worse because they're able-bodied kids that have no injury that's holding them back from playing. They're just not being allowed to play. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that has to be absolutely brutal. I mean, almost even worse than an injury because there's something you can do about it. You're not allowed to.
And then you had some parents who left the state for their kids to go play. So it's like
Right.
other states out. Then you had, your club sports going to other states playing. So then it's like, okay, they can play, but we can't play.
Right.
So then it's like, now you're pointing fingers. And
Right.
I mean, I, it was a crazy time. It was absolutely a crazy time. And then, for us, we'd go driving around looking for a story, and I see, a basketball court, and there's 20 kids on a basketball court playing on their own. So
Right.
it's like, and that was the thing with the coaches. A lot of the coaches said to me was, let us do our jobs and do this safely.
Right.
Like,
Right.
do you want your kids on like a non-supervised game over here, a pickup game on the court, or do you want us to do this as our profession, and we'll get it right with the social distancing, with the rules in place, the temperature checks and whatnot. And it's like, because they're going to do it anyway.
Right.
And basically their biggest argument was, let us do our job and monitor the situation and try to get through this the best we can. So luckily it
Yep.
all worked out. Luckily sports is back up and going.
It's so nice. Football's
The
being played
spring
when football's supposed to be played. Yeah.
season, holy moly, that was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Cancellations, testing. Oh my goodness, that was a learning curve for everyone. I just think I don't know. I look back at it all, and I look back and I just think, man, I think there's a newfound appreciation. I
Yeah.
think everyone should have a newfound appreciation just for, I guess, for life, for anything, from just being able to go to a sporting event. I mean, every game that I go to on a Friday night, and if the student section is packed, I
Hmm.
can't help but smile, because I'm like, holy cow, they're back. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that probably feels so good as a kid, like as a
Oh,
student, the student section, being able to on a Friday night cheer on your team, go crazy, especially a rivalry game like that Folsom De La Salle game the other night. I
yeah.
mean, that student section was wild,
Oh, I have
and
no doubt.
good for them. I mean, I don't know. I'm selfishly, I'm thankful that I didn't have to go through this in my high school years, missing prom and all that stuff, all the
Oh,
good,
yeah.
great things you look back on, and you're like, wow, that was fun. And man, my heart broke for these kids.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that was obvious in your coverage of it because of how I felt, me personally, how passionately you were covering it. So, just on behalf of like all the coaches and athletes in this
Thanks.
area, like we
Gosh,
definitely appreciate that for sure. I'm sure you've heard it a million times, but
I
it can be
have, but
said. It
hey,
can be said
I
again.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, kind of to segue into kind of a similar thing, but as a sports journalist, as someone who's been doing this for all these years,
Mhm.
um, like how it's kind of a weird question because this might sound weird. It's like I want you to talk about yourself and why your job is so important, but like why do you feel like what you do is so important for this home team of Sacramento? Because like I look at like what you do or Joe Davidson does or all of these different people who cover sports, Max Preps and all the coverage they have. I feel like it's super important for our community and probably any community across the nation. But coming from you, like why do you feel like it's such an important job? And then what advice would you have for anybody who's maybe considering it in their future?
First of all, I mean, I think the biggest thing is don't do it for yourself. Don't for me, I don't do this to be on TV. I don't do it for, I guess you can call it, celebrity. That's probably my least favorite part about this job, actually.
Sure.
um, but
Yeah.
I mean, I just love giving people a voice and sharing their story. I mean, everyone has a story and everyone has a struggle, and I think that's just so important um, to highlight. I mean, you got some of these star athletes, like, gosh, I've covered so many, but just when they're breaking school records or state records, or they're hauling in touchdowns, or I mean they're just overcoming the odds, or whatever background, just everyone has a story, and it's so different, and I
Right.
just love learning and hearing, and maybe selfishly I get inspired. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of like, it makes my day when I can cover a story and walk away and say, wow. Like, I just did a story the other day on Mia Cohen. She's a water polo player with Down
Oh, that
syndrome
was awesome.
at Del Oro, right? I'm like, when I'm walking away, I mean, I'm 40, and when a 16, 17-year-old kid can make me almost tear up and cry, but two, just walk away, just like thinking, man, when I grow up, I want to be like Mia. And I'm like over here twice her age. And I don't know, that for me, I guess it keeps me young. And I just walk away saying there are good people in this world, you know? And I
Yeah.
think it's a lot of things times too, is like, I always wonder, like, would I ever make the switch to news? because a lot of sports journalists do that. One, for the better schedule, you know, the lifestyle. You don't have to work the odd hours on the weekends with sports. But man, the thing about sports is it's not doom and gloom. There's always you know, okay, if your team loses, okay, that can be sad. But at the same time, it's like there's a winner and they're happy, or there's some athlete that overcame the odds and they're, you know, doing amazing things. I just think for me, that's why I do this is just to tell the story and give a voice.
Yeah, I love that.
And advice for other folks that want
to
do it. Do it because you want to do it. Take risks and be yourself. That's all. That's the biggest thing I always tell anyone is, especially if you're going to get into TV, don't try to rip someone else's little shtick off. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, Stuart Scott had his place in this world, and that was Stuart Scott.
Sure.
Don't be yourself. That's the biggest thing is I always tell every broadcasting class is, as soon as you're not authentic on TV, I think people realize that. And I think people can see right through that you're not authentic. And I think if you're just your authentic self, then I think that's what's going to come across. And they're either going to love you or hate you. And you can't control that because they're going to love or hate you, because that's life, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, if you were yourself and they chose not to like you because you were you, that's their problem. So
100% agree.
Yeah, that's my advice to folks. And for me, like I said earlier, the best thing I probably did was go to Texas. Did I want to? No. Did I want to leave in my 20s, my early 20s, away from my friends while they were still, you know, having fun, doing whatever they're doing, and I'm in a whole different place? No, I didn't initially want to go, but you know what? I had to. Basically, that was my grad school. And that jump, one, opened so many doors. I grew up so fast. And just that one risk, and then you weren't afraid to do anything. Then I wasn't afraid to do anything else. I mean, I wasn't afraid of other things. So I think that really paid off as well.
I love that. Is it now with obviously with social media, with YouTube, with podcasts, you know, popping up all the time? I imagine someone trying to be authentic to themselves has got to be. I mean, I know even like almost 3 years ago when I started podcasting, the thing I was terrified of wasn't for my voice to be broadcast to a bunch of different places. It was, I hope I don't listen to all these podcasts that I've listened to and then accidentally rip someone off. Right. And so that was always the thing I was terrified of. So because of, you know, how easily accessible all of these things are and how easy it is for someone to broadcast their voice, has that changed the game for, you know, people that are kind of going in your direction?
I don't think so. I mean, I have had news directors say, like, they don't want the ESPN style. They don't want that flashy. That's not what local news is about. So it's a different thing too. So when you have like a little shtick, like a little, if you're the comedian or you're the funny guy or you're the, you know, I'm trying to think, Katie Nolan, with she was with ESPN. She was a comedian / you know, she was a sports comedian kind of thing. So that's her thing, right? So let her do her thing. But don't try to, I don't know. Would you want to copy that? I wouldn't want to copy that. Like that's her, because she's funny, and you know, I can be funny too, but it's like more of so on like a social media kind of thing. Like, you kind of step out of your comfort zone a little bit there, I guess you could say, or let your hair down, they say.
Sure.
Can't act like that on TV all the time. But
no, that makes sense. Probably wouldn't be good. Probably wouldn't be a good thing.
No. And every station and every network has a different philosophy too. So you got to know what you're up against. Like there's stations here in Sacramento that are a lot more free than say how KCRA is. KCRA is pretty very conservative. They don't want, you know, just you kind of don't do anything too crazy. It's not like maybe a Good Day Sacramento where it's like fair game for everything. You know, it's just you got to kind of know your audience, know your role, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a really difficult question. This might be a really unfair question. You remember back in the day how we used to ask you your the music question?
What was that music question? What was the life? Define your
the life song. Yeah. It's probably gonna be very similar to that. So, but I have to ask you, because like I said, you have so many connections to this city. If you had to choose one athlete or one coach who you feel represents the city well, both in how they compete and how they live their life, both on and off the field? Like, who would you say is like, who would you want to shout out and say, like, this person is the person who, if I had to pick, if like aliens came down and said, hey, give us your best representative competitively and character wise from Sacramento, who would it be? It's like picking one of your favorite kids, I'm sure.
It is. It's really hard because there's
Yeah.
so many great coaches. But I think kind of an unsung hero for me is, Mike Johnson?
Oh, the name sounds familiar. Is basketball coach?
Nope.
Football coach.
With Playmakers Elite.
We try. Yeah. I don't know him. We tried to get him on the podcast at one point, but hasn't worked out yet. So, okay. Tell me a little bit about him.
So Mike, obviously former athlete, football, but he trains, he has a gym. So it's like he has his Playmakers Elite. So he trains these kids outside of school, as you could say. Like, you have your special, like, I don't know, like Ian Book comes back and trains with Mike.
Okay.
I mean, Josiah Dwara comes back and trains. I mean, all these guys at the next level come back and train with Mike. And I just think he's not on a team coach, but he's like their individual coach and like help. But it's like a wide range of athletes he's trained before. I mean, he was with Blake the Beast for a while for boxing. Exodus with the what was that, Ninja Warrior trains there. I mean, there's just so many so many vast athletes. And of course you have your football guys, and he trains females for girls and for sports that they're doing there. I just think, I don't know, it's kind of like an unsung hero. I always look out for the unsung heroes because I mean, there's so many coaches that you can't name one. I can't, because I mean, I think it's unfair. Yeah. In a lot of ways, I'm like, man, I don't even know who I would name. But for me right now, when you just said that, the first person that came to my mind was Mike Johnson with Playmakers Elite. What he does for kids on the side and having them show up and holding them accountable and training them individually and he's always rooting for him. I mean, I follow him on social media, and it's like, but while I'm over here saying I'm proud, I see a tweet like right after, and it's like, oh, Mike's proud too. It's pretty cool. I don't know. Shout out to Mike.
All right, perfect. No, I love that job that he has too, because obviously, if you're at a really high level high school, you're really like a high level high school coach, you maybe will see one athlete for 4 years at most, right? If they're a freshman starting varsity, you'll see them 4 years at most, and then they go on and hopefully they come back and maybe they coach for you one day, or maybe they just have maybe make it to like a D1 pro level and they come back just to support the school. But what he does is it's different. Like, he sees all kinds of athletes, all different ages. So he could have an athlete from a younger age further out. Right.
You have to relate, and you have to find some kind of common bond there and make that relationship work. And I think that's like special because, like a high school coach, nothing against the high school coaches, obviously, but it's like you have a certain group, and that's what you're and you don't get to pick, and they don't get to pick you. These kids, they pick him for a reason. It's like they seek him out and they make it work. Right. And I just think that's pretty special, because it's like a personal trainer practically. You're a personal coach.
Yeah. And I think that's a cool thing, because like I said, he gets to, coach every sport he wants, every level that he wants. And like you said, he's rooting for them, which I think is the most important thing.
He's got all their jerseys hanging in his gym.
Which is so cool.
Kind of like the Game Fit Sack. Lem Adams does a great job over there.
Oh, yeah, we love him. Lem too. Yeah, he's a very intense guy. He was on the podcast a while ago, and
Lem's
we
great.
love. Yeah, he's.
Yep.
Well, he's a guy that I'm sure Mike does the same thing, but I feel like Lem trains just as hard, if not harder, than the athletes he's training. He's insane. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you got to set the example, right? I mean, that's gaining that respect right there. When those athletes are saying, dang, coach, you're getting after it. I want to get after it too. And you might be 20 years older than me, but I'm not let you beat me. So, and right there, if anyone's competitive, I'm all for that. That's amazing. That's competition at its finest.
Absolutely. That's a great way of doing it. Well, Michelle, this has been awesome. I could talk to you for like a couple more hours, but we're not going to do a Joe Rogan style podcast tonight. We're just going to keep it. We're going to keep it short. So,
We'll just do a brain check. You'll just have to have me back on.
okay, be careful. You'll say that, and then
Hey.
you'll get the DM pretty soon. It's like, hey,
Anytime.
come back on.
Anytime.
Thank you. I always appreciate your support. I know everybody in this area appreciates what you do on a daily basis, and highlighting just the awesome coaches and athletes here. We definitely appreciate that. Where can they?
I appreciate everyone embracing me as well, because I mean, I embrace the community because I'm embraced here, and even though I'm a Dodgers fan, and it's no secret, but I still feel the love from Sacramento, and that doesn't go unnoticed, and I'm so thankful.
So now I'm sidetracked a little bit. That's a really interesting perspective, because I imagine that plays a huge role in how passionate you are, or how passionate any reporter or journalist is about the area that they're in. If they don't feel that love,
oh, absolutely, yeah,
it's gonna be tough.
It's a game changer. I mean, if you're not feeling it back, how do you? It's almost like, how do you show your face? You know what I mean? If you're not feeling that love, it's like, you're not going to walk into the room confident. You're not going to walk into the facility confident. You're going to be kind of like, oh, so how do I do my job at the best of my ability if I don't have that confidence that my viewers trust me and listen to me and watch me, support me? That'd be a hard task to overcome. So I'm very appreciative that Sacramento shows their love.
Well, that's awesome. Well, this
and
entire
show their love.
which is nice. You could just keep that all bottled up, but why? Like, let the person know. We're only here for a short amount of time on this earth, so you gotta let people know how you feel about them and show that appreciation. So
absolutely,
I speak for the entire home team. We appreciate you and all the work that you do.
Thank you, Josh.
So let us know if for some reason, if you're in the sports or world, athlete or coaching, you're not following Michelle. I don't know how that's possible, but say they're listening, they're not. Where can they follow you?
Twitter at KCRA Dapper. Instagram at So Dapper, and then Facebook KCRA Michelle Dapper. So pretty simple.
Go follow Michelle. You will not be disappointed. And Michelle, once again, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh.